I just love the NBA Cup, bro. I think it's very competitive. Like I said a couple minutes ago, it just puts all these players in a different scenario. We got trying to score until the clock hits zero, just things that you don't normally see in the NBA. So I'm excited to get into it. And yeah, I think it happens earlier in the year, like
Hmm.
within the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, it's Nikola Jokic, the first player that they are building around. He is a former Finals MVP, former, three. Obviously, he's won the MVP 3 times as well. I mean, what more can you really say about it? I think his age is the only concern. Um, but he's on like a 5 year, $276 million deal, which is very expensive. The thing I did want to note, it happened today actually. Mickey's postponing his like contract extension, which
What's
was
going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at Three Man Weave. I'm your co-host CJ, here with my lovely co-host ZD on this Wednesday afternoon, July 9th. How are you doing today, ZD?
man, feeling good, bro. Like I told you, man. Above ground, so it's another opportunity to be great, like I always say, brother. We got a big docket for today as well. A lot of things have been happening in the NBA. Got the Nuggets off-season file, which is going to be interesting. Another second apron team, which is, I mean, they're restricted. They can't do anything. So we'll see how interesting that little bit is. But a lot of good things to talk about. I think Jokic, hey, he's holding out. I think the cup groups came out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Chet,
Chet got that
there's a lot.
extension. You know what I'm saying?
How
Come
are you
on,
feeling,
man.
though? How are you feeling, though, bro?
I'm feeling great, bro. Obviously got that shirt on. It just came in yesterday. Had to put it on right away. We had a little content day yesterday. We did a little tournament. We did a college football 26 tournament, so it was super fun. And after waking up, seeing the news broke of Chet signing that extension, super excited.
Yeah, I want to say like I'd seen a video Cam posted. Shout out OPM Sports. Like y'all are going crazy, bro.
Yeah.
The little
Oh,
TFB snippet on TikTok, bro. Like that shit
yeah.
was crazy. Bro.
Yeah, bro. It has
Wanted to
like two.
congratulate you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah,
It hit like
it was like
200K, bro. So
yeah. For people that don't know, bro, think about that. 200,000 views, bro. That's a fifth of a million. Like think about that for 1 second.
yeah,
I don't even think my brain can comprehend 200,000 people in a room. So
I don't even. Yeah,
congrats to you, my boy.
I appreciate it, bro.
It's a
Yeah,
big
it's
deal.
shout out to Cam, bro. That was that was his idea. He wanted to. He timed it perfectly. Right before the game dropped or officially dropped. He was kind of like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
hey,
part of it.
I want to ask y'all like who you want to like rebuild and stuff. So it was he got it done, he got it edited, and he timed it at the perfect moment. So shout out to Cam, really that was all him. But obviously we were in it and we were the talent per se, so we had a part to do with it. But it was all him on the back end. So shout out to the boy Cam, bro, because we collabed on it on Instagram as well, and it's doing really well on pretty much all platforms. So I think it was like a perfect storm per se. Just at everything it coming out, it's the brand new game. People are excited about it. So yeah, shout out to the boy. But yeah, no, just super excited, bro. Like we were talking about earlier. Chet got that extension, and for everyone that doesn't know, he just signed a 5 year $250 million contract. It starts next year, I believe. So it's one of those. Shea took the a 4 year contract, so his contract starts 2026. Because I was looking at the books, ZD and I were kind of chopping it up before, and I was saying, man, we're gonna have to either we're gonna probably have to get rid of iHeart. Long story short, is what I was talking to him. That contract for what he provides for us. He's a great player, great contributing factor as to why we won this championship. But I think kind of moving into the future, moving on from that. That's why we talked about it. Our draft pod. That's why we drafted Thomas Sorber. Try to get versatile, big that could do a little
Right.
bit of everything. So I think he's probably gonna be
Totally.
the like the odd man out in this sense because he is getting his contract is a pretty big contract. He's going to be the second highest paid player in this upcoming year. So, but like I said, sorry, that's getting a little nerdy, But that's why y'all watch Three Man Weave. We kind of talk about like the business side and the money, but yeah, no, like I said, super excited to get Chet. Obviously injuries is always a thing with him, right? He can't really stay healthy, but coming off of this championship, I think he kind of showed us what he can provide for us on the defensive side of the ball. I think the on the offense, he's going to get a lot better. I think there was a lot of times in the playoffs he was getting stopped pretty much. Like he can't really bully people, but he has the height to kind of shoot over people. So I think once he kind of fine tunes that and gets more comfortable creating his shots and just finding his spots he's trying to get to and not trying to do too much. I think that's something that I've talked to you in the audience about before. When you are like a unicorn of a type of player where you could dribble, you could create your own shots, you could shoot threes, it's kind of a lot for you to like navigate, trying to figure out what exactly you're wanting to do. And I think that's kind of where he's at right now in his career. But once he figures that out, I think what he was able to provide on the defensive side of the ball in the playoffs for us this year after missing a huge chunk of the season. I think it was the right move. I think the thing with the Thunder, in our past was that we didn't want to hit the luxury tax. I think probably with J Dub, that's still kind of in the air of him getting his extension. Obviously, I think he's going to get it. And with his contract, with that extension, more than likely we're going to be pretty close to breaking that luxury tax, So I think now it's kind of, we saw what this roster can do. We're still young. We have a lot of time. Like our time it's a wide range right now. So it would be a disservice to the players on this team and honestly the fans really to not extend these guys after seeing what they were able to do at such a young age. So like I said, super excited, bro. Just ready to see how he comes back this season. Just a full season. That's what I'm hoping that we can get from him this upcoming year, and just ready to see what they're going to be able to do, because I know that J Dub is going to get that extension as well, and it's going to be expensive, bro. And I think that's something we've talked about as well. Like these three players are going to be taking, probably 80% of our cap. So that's where you gotta be savvy with the way you move these contracts around and signing these rookies. Good thing we have picks, right? That is the one thing. Like I'm not Thunder. I'm not ungrateful as a fan. You know what I mean? We're in a great position. We have the picks. We have the
I'll be
assets to
fine.
make moves. So yeah, it's just more so especially doing these off-season files, talking about the trajectory of a lot of these teams. They don't have that luxury of having, 2-3 great young players with the assets to kind of move stuff around. So I can't complain. Obviously, it's something that it sucks to be in those luxury taxes, but if you're in the position that the Thunder are in, it's nothing to like be down about. We just want to chip, and the future is bright for us. So we got to lock up our young talent, and we got to make sure that they get paid, because they're supposed to be the cornerstones of our franchise.
Right. Yeah, there's escalators in this deal. It's very clear. They're signaling that he's going to be an all NBA player, all star caliber player. I think the bonuses range up to like 30 or 40 million. So there's a lot of money to be made on the table for Chet Holmgren. I think he's going to possess the skills to do so. I mean, what it means for their core is that their core is probably going to be the strongest in the NBA for the next 5 years. You had posed a question to me before we hopped on, but like, bro, like I think we could be coming into dynasty here. I think Sam Presti has moved the chess pieces around to have, like I said, the pieces at his disposal to really play with. Shea just taking a little bit of a pay cut. Obviously, J Dub was on that rookie contract last season for them to win that championship, but I think it speaks to, like you said, the community that they've built in Oklahoma City. They're going to sign those guys, especially after they win a championship. There's really no reason you don't do that in that situation. This also kind of stops the bidding war, right? Like you don't want to have a standoff with a guy like Chet Holmgren, who's a potential face of your franchise or one of the faces of your franchise, and who's going to be here for a long time. So I definitely, do you see him as a for lifer?
Man, I hope so. I mean, at this point, I don't know if there is a for lifer in the league after that Luka trade. I'm not gonna lie, but
For
yes,
real,
as
for
as
real.
of right now,
Yeah,
yes, I do. I don't see a
yeah, it's kind
reason
of
for him to leave at this point.
yeah, and like you just said, I think you gave some decent background on you nerded out a bit, but bro, they have picks. They're not going to be frozen. Even if their future ones are frozen, the 2037 picks, the 2038 picks that are like later, whenever we get to the point when they're in the first apron, second apron, potentially,
Right.
right? Like it's still not going to hurt them for the next 4 or 5 years. They're still going to have an opportunity to build around their assets that they are paying so much for. And like CJ said, 80% of their balance sheet is going to be held up by Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But I think it just signals to the NBA that the Thunder are serious about making this a dynasty. I mentioned a minute ago, but those escalators, clearly they're kind of showing Chet Holmgren this is the way, bro. Like if you can lead us to another championship or possibly be an All-Star or make All NBA, like you're gonna get paid. And yeah, bro. I mean, this is exciting. I know when I saw this news, you had asked me like, uh, you know, it was like we were talking about our topics because we go through our outline, and you were like, oh. Was this one of the topics? Because you were like, oh yeah, Chet Holmgren. I was like, nah. Like I saw this when this came out, bro.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, had
I see
to.
a na. Sean Serrani was like coming in hot. This one, like I was gonna say, bro, like just super, super expected, and he deserves it, man. Deserving. I think the thing I was gonna say that might kind of drop a bomb on the Oklahoma City Thunder fans is I think it's a lot to be paying for Chet Holmgren. He still has some things to prove. Hey, bro, he performed well in the finals enough for me, obviously, to win. So I don't think he's a bad player. He's definitely an all-star caliber. I think if you asked him though, he would answer it. He's still got more to prove for himself in terms of the type of player that he is and his capabilities. So I think the Thunder are in a situation where they can offer him a deal at this magnitude. And again, it just kind of negates the potential contract standoff that could happen next season. And it's very good for the Thunder moving forward, bro. So I love it. I know you love it. The NBA probably doesn't love it.
Yeah.
And like you kind of said, like we were talking about earlier, would you like to ask that question before that, you had asked me before we hopped on?
Yeah, yeah. So, I asked ZD earlier, I see a lot of people talking about, there being parity in the league right now. So I asked him, if do you think it's better when there is like a dynasty in the league, or do you think you like it more when there's parity? Because, as of 2020 or since 2019, we've had 7 different NBA champions. So I asked him that because, pretty much every decade there has been the Spurs, the Lakers, the all these teams, the Warriors. There's all these teams that are consistently going to the championship, winning multiple back to backs or three-peats, whatever it may be. I see a lot of people saying that the league is better when there is a dynasty. So I kind of wanted to see your thoughts about that, Z.
Yeah, and side note, I like because we've done this consistently in episodes. They're like preview questions. Like we get to go into depth about our conversation before the pod, and then ask them like you're asking me like, oh, like I already asked them. Like you're telling the audience like that's so dumb, bro. Anyways, anyways, I answered with it doesn't matter. I think this is a situation where the way that I explained it to DJ was back to the Warriors and the Cavs, man. Like, yeah, those two dynasties going at it head for head, bro. Like, we saw them every single season for 3 straight years. We kind of getting tired of it, but did you not get some of the best basketball that was ever played, especially in the playoffs? Kyrie's game-winning shot, which is probably the most impactful big shot in NBA history still to this day. Like, think about that for a second. But then you move on to the parity. You don't know which team is going to win. Like, there's some interest in that. I think this season specifically, there was a ton of parity. Like the Thunder, the Pacers, they just haven't been in a situation like that, let alone like a big game 7. Like, I think for people, the naysayers, me and you saw this coming. We saw a 6-game series, 7-game series coming, but I don't think a lot of people saw how good the Pacers were, and I think that's kind of what made that series so competitive and so juicy. And just to answer your question, I don't think it matters, bro. And as an NBA fan, I think we should be thankful to get both sides. If the Thunder end up turning into a dynasty, bro, like so be it. But like if we keep getting repeat or not repeat winners, different winners, that's awesome too. Like I don't think it matters. Like I don't think the Wizards are going to win a championship anytime soon, but we'll see. But
Hmm.
I think it's like that parity where you don't really know who's going to win. It's nice, bro. It's nice. But
Yeah.
I think there's some pros that come with like the dynasty part of it, right? Like going back to the Jordan Bulls, bro. Like I know people were always excited to watch him play and kind of knowing that the Chicago Bulls would be in the finals, but like who cares, bro? Like it's still good basketball.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What
No.
do you think about that, bro?
Honestly, I'm in the same boat as you, bro. Maybe it's
Yeah,
because as growing up, watching, or mid 2000s up until now, it's like, I've seen dynasties. I've seen the Spurs win, three championships in 5 years. I saw the Lakers, not really watching, but I saw them get a three-peat. I saw the Warriors. I mean, that's the recent one that probably a lot of us are able to relate to. And yeah, it's exciting. Like you were saying, there's pros to it. Everyone was waiting for Curry versus LeBron in the finals. Like we knew it was going to be Warriors versus Cavs. Pretty much every year, the year that was KD there. So it's exciting, but I think it's. I like parity just because you just never know. Like even going into the season, yes, we're probably favorites to win the championships, of course, coming off to the season. But like it's still, looking at the West, there's still any team that could potentially go on a crazy run like how the Pacers did last year, So I like that, honestly. And maybe it's because it's something that I haven't really experienced in my life up to this point. I think the last time it was like this was like the 70s, I believe. And I know a lot of people say that was like one of the weaker decades of NBA basketball because of that, So I enjoy it because I feel like we're gonna be looking at this time. This is when Giannis got a chip, Jokic got a chip, Shea got a chip. You know what I mean? All these players that had never won before. They're experiencing that for the first time. Some Nuggets winning their first ever championship, Thunder winning their first. So it's I like that, but maybe that's just because I love the sport. I'm not just a casual fan that's just watching it because of Curry or because of Jordan or because of Shaq and LeBron, or Shaq and Kobe. Whoa, sorry, but like, you know what I mean? As
would
a
have been crazy.
yeah, that would have been crazy. But like, I think as a casual fan, I understand
Wait,
the
they
dynasties.
did play together, bro.
They did in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you're not even tripping, bro.
No,
You're
yeah,
good.
I'm not
Keep going.
tripping, but I was talking about with the Lakers, obviously, your
Yeah,
boys.
obviously.
But yeah, I think I just love the parody, bro. I just like you just don't know what's gonna happen. I think that is the beauty of basketball, but just of sports in general. You know what I mean? I like it being unpredictable. Like yes, you're gonna have your favorites, you're gonna have your front runners throughout the whole season, but the fact that the Pacers were able to make it to the finals this year kind of said a lot to where the sport is and just kind of where we're at right now as a league. Like any team can make it there. It's just your continuity at the right time. Are you doing the right things to build the team? So I enjoy it. I know a lot of people might say otherwise, but you and I kind of agree and have the same sentiment that like it just makes it more exciting to watch as a fan, especially people that love basketball because you just don't know what's gonna happen, and that's how it's been for the past 6 7 years, whatever it is. So I love it, bro. It just makes it a little more interesting for me.
I love that. Yeah, no, I agree 100%, brother. Like that's exactly you hit the nail right on the button. So, yeah, I was watching some of the summer league. Ace Bailey bounced back a little bit. He had a near triple double against the Grizz. I mean, hey, bro. I mean, what more can you really like? We saw flashes of this at Rutgers, but I just think I spoke about it last pod that hasn't came out yet. But he can just get to his spots. Clearly he's got an NBA scoring physique, pause, and just his ability to get anywhere on the court. I think it's like second to none. I think he almost had a triple double, bro. If I got the box right, 18, 7, and 3. Not a triple double, but double double. My bad.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's just like seeing him perform that way is kind of why they took him at 5. Even with all the draft. issues beforehand. I think he kind of showed why he is a top five, lottery pick. And I know the Jazz are extremely excited to have, like, again, that secondary scorer alongside Lowry marketing, because they really don't have a shot creator on that team besides Lowry who
Hmm.
can get to his spots whenever they want. I think they've added that in Ace Bailey. So he was cooking some, you know, non-contract guys and some, second year guys and some, guys who may not make the team, but nonetheless, bro, it was still a good performance. And I was able to watch like one quarter and I got bored, but I saw him hit a three, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, shout out Ace Bailey for sure, man. He's doing his thing though. Like I know the Jazz, like I said, is just they've been in a dark place. They're one of those teams that ran into the dynasty of the Jordan Bulls, who they just couldn't get over the hump. And so I think since then, I don't think they've been to the finals,
Yeah. No. Yeah.
which is that's a long
It's a
time,
long
bro.
time.
So yeah, I watching them, I thought about that. I was like, I don't even remember when the last time the Jazz made it. So um, they've got to find a way to get back. I think it starts with Will Hardy, Ace Bailey, Larry Markkinen. They got rid of Collins. We talked about that trade last time on the last pod as well. But we'll see what Kevin Love can do. I think more so they were just trying to get off the contract and move some assets around. But nonetheless, bro, Ace Bailey looks good in summer league, and I think Golden State too. I think LJ Cryer, bro, from Baylor, like starting to hoop a little bit as well. I was doing a little bit of research, and the Warriors are kind of catching fire. My Lakers, we did all right. Dalton Connect showed up last night. Bronny James still hasn't got going, which is tough, bro. I think after the first quarter, you go for. Um, but yeah, my thoughts is just like obviously whenever we're Lakers summer league team is we play through Dalton Connect. He gets the majority of our shots, but we got to give some other guys some opportunities. Even like a Bronny James, I think gets way more opportunities than he really needs to be. I think he needs to be, sharing the ball a little bit more because those dudes are going to play. Connects on a roster, but Bronny's going to play in the G League, if not play on the roster this year. So I think that was the only note that I had. Just get some other guys, some other reps. But Warriors Summer League team going off as well. But yeah, that's like the Summer League report, kind of quick little 3 to 5 minute sentiment that I got. But um, that's the only way to watch hoops right now. Me and CJ always say it at the end of the pod, watch your NBA. There's really no excuse not to be watching it. So, yeah, you've been watching it at all, and not so much.
Nah, I've just been seeing clips and stuff. I saw
Yeah, yeah.
I saw Topich do his thing. I got to watch the
Oh, okay.
boys. I saw him, his playmaking ability, kind of him throwing lobs. I was like, I didn't want to say it, but it's looking like someone that's in LA right now, man. It's looking a little crafty. I mean, not as polished, obviously on the scoring side, but just his ability to create. There was like I think I saw that the thing that made me think of him. I'm referring to Luca for everyone that doesn't know. The play that kind of made me think of him was I think it was like a step back and it looked like he was about to take the jumper and then he just throws a lob and just tosses it up. So I was like, oh, okay, like that's something we need, especially more than likely going to be coming off our bench. Obviously, after these players are going to get their extensions. Shea's the lead guard, but having him come off the bench with like Case and Wallace and Andrew Wiggins. Like I was like, okay, we might have a. I mean, we already had a really good second unit. Having him be the lead playmaker, I feel like that's what that unit was missing. We didn't really have anybody to create all the time or run offensive sets. We Andrew Wiggins did great. Or my bad, I keep saying Andrew. Aaron Wiggins
You're good.
did
Yeah,
great, and
I was
then
about to say you got it.
like obviously Isaiah Joe, we have the shooters, but there was no one really there to, run the offense that, probably that's what they're comfortable doing. But I think with Topic, seeing, like you said, it's summer league at the end of the day. He's playing against people that might not even be on the team, but it's great signs to something we hadn't seen for a whole year. He didn't play all season with that ACL and injury and just kind of him recovering. It's looking good. So I'm very excited to see what he can be this year. Not saying he's gonna be like an all-star. He's a rookie, but so he potentially like maybe first or second team. I just don't know if he's gonna be getting that much run, especially with the team that we have. It's gonna be we're kind of loaded. So, but I think when he is on the court, he'll be able to create for a lot of people, and that's what we're missing for our bench unit.
100%. Yeah, man. The Lakers. I know you saw. Aiton was like really excited to be in the facility, saying all the right stuff. But he was like, I've been wanting to play with Luca so bad, like my entire career. I guess he had said, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I think he was always jealous of Luca a little bit, in my opinion. But like neither here nor there. I think he's getting a chance to play with LeBron and Luca. I think it's gonna be good for him, bro. Obviously he's not on a summer league roster, but some of those guys that will make that roster are going to play an important role, such as DeAndre Ayton. Kind of give us an opportunity on the defensive end, and especially with having Dorian Finney-Smith walk. So it's a good opportunity for guys to get their reps, and I think that's the most important thing. But would you like to touch on the in-season tournament groups,
Yeah,
brother?
yeah, yes, sir. So
NBA Cup.
So the NBA, for everyone that doesn't know, have the in season tournament. It's called the NBA Cup. It's during the season they play specific games for the tournament, and in the goal of winning the NBA Cup. So they just released their groups, and literally at like 3:30 today, right before we started recording. So I'll just starting off with the Eastern Conference. This is East Group A. Cleveland, Indiana, Atlanta, Toronto, and Washington. And do you just want me to go through it? And if like a group kind of catches your eye, you want to talk about it, or do you want to talk about each one?
Uh, I say if one catches our eye, we could talk about it. That one's interesting. I think Washington. They got the Blake Wesley, they got Malachi Brenham, they got Trey Johnson. Like we season, um, but I think it was I forgot. I think we did it in person, bro. But we did like who would win the in season tournament, and I chose the Nets one year. Like
Yeah,
they had like a dark horse, Call Bridges. Like I think this is an opportunity for a team to like win that doesn't really win in the
yeah.
Senate. But I think that group's interesting for sure.
Yeah,
Toronto.
yeah. I remember we definitely. I think we did it in person, and that's we were saying like, oh, this is an opportunity for a young team that might not be able to make
Exactly.
like a championship run. They could win an NBA Cup. So I think that's kind of how we were feeling about it. But shit, really, these last two, yeah, it's been around for 2 years, right? Y'all won the first one, and the Bucks won last year. So it kind of is looking like these veterans are taking it serious as well. So whenever we do our predictions, obviously we don't know like game schedules of it yet, whatever. But we might have to think about that next time. But going into the next group, East Group B, this one has the Celtics, the Pistons, Magic, Nets, and 76ers.
It's an interesting
That's
one.
that's an
The
interesting one.
Magic, bro. The
Magic.
Magic are cold. I think the Celtics aren't going to be too good, but they have a chance there to be okay.
hmm Yeah, I like
We'll just see what they look like without JT.
yeah, yeah. We gotta see because it's what like halfway through the
The
season
Cup is like, I think it's like a little before.
before
It's like early.
early, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like kind of early. Yeah, it's a little.
and then we got East Group C, last group in the Eastern Conference. This one is the Bucks, the Knicks, the Bulls, the Heat, and the Hornets.
I like that one. Yeah, that one's like interesting. I think that the Hornets for me, bro. We talked about them in the offseason files, but they have some improvements that they can make that makes them scary. If everybody's healthy, we'll see.
Yeah,
Knuffle, bro. Come
yeah,
on now, bro. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, bro.
yeah.
Come on, Liam McNeely. Come on.
Hey, man.
They're really him, bro. And I don't know if you saw, bro. They had every vet in there when they signed their deals. Like it
Yes,
was cool.
I did see that.
Charlotte tough, bro. Like they got a culture there. They're starting to build it, and I see it. So hopefully Lamelo can grow up a little bit and take those guys to the promised land. We'll see.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's I like that group a lot. Honestly, that's a lot of especially the Hornets, like you said, just a young team trying to prove themselves in
Exactly,
the
bro.
league. So Going into the Western Conference, this is West Group A. The NBA champions, Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Sacramento Kings, Phoenix Suns, and Utah Jazz. Uh, Besides the Timberwolves, I think that's easy money for us. I'm not gonna lie to you. The only team I'm really worried about is Minnesota. Maybe Phoenix. Maybe that D Book and Jalen Green, Bradley Beal. Maybe they're hot first half or first couple weeks of the season leading into the cup games. But besides that, I mean that I think that wouldn't be a hard group for us to potentially be a winner of, and I'm comfortable. I like that. That pool for us. So, uh,
Yeah. No, I like the games like before Vegas a
mm,
lot. Even though you would think a neutral court is like better, but I know the courts are kind of crazy, but does the point differentials an interesting piece to it. You see people try to run up the score. Like yeah, it's cool. I like it. I like the cup so far. We'll see if the Thunder go for it. They may not go for it, but
yeah,
like when I say go for it, they go for it, but they're not like
like
all out for this game. Like,
right.
yeah, like some teams will be. I think didn't they lose last year
We lost to
to
the Bucks
Bucks? Yeah, the Bucks in that
in the
that
championship.
championship.
Yeah, imagine,
Yeah.
imagine if we would have won that too.
Oh, they would have been the first team in NBA history. But they already are, bro.
Already
They
are,
already
yeah,
are a lot of first. So
yeah,
yeah, like that's all good for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I think my group's coming up, right?
Yeah,
Come on.
your Lakers are up. So West Group B got the Lake Show. Got the Clips. That's nice. Got the Grizzlies, the Mavericks, and the Pelicans.
Yeah, we competing, bro. Pelicans, Mavs. We gonna see what they can do as long as they healthy. They might be dangerous. No Kai, Cooper Flag, but Clippers, bro, dangerous,
Very.
dangerous. I think losing Norman Powell is big for them. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think John Collins is gonna be that same offensive dude that Norman Powell was, but that's the only team that's like very scary. I think the Lakers are top two, if not one, in that group, bro. Like just looking at Luka Doncic, Aiton, come on, bro. AR, bro, come on, bro. AJ, come on, bro. Like, I'm gonna be turned, bro, for
Yeah.
sure. Like that's a good group for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
We gonna see. Though. We've also won before, so there's that little side to it. I know it was with AD, battling it out, but we gonna see, bro. We gonna see what that group holds.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And then the last group for the NBA Cup games, West Group C. We got the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Trailblazers, and the Spurs. This group, to me, I think is probably the most competitive. All teams are really good. Obviously, Rockets acquiring KD and all the other assets that they got. The Nuggets, kind of retooling the roster that they had last year, getting Cam Johnson, getting you know, shit,
Joe
drawing a
Val
blank.
too.
Valanciunas. I was gonna say I didn't want to get the player wrong though, but Golden State, obviously Jimmy, Curry, full season. We'll see how that looks like. Portland, I
Hell
feel like
yeah.
Portland could be definitely one of those teams that people count out, but they could ball out in these cup games. You know what I mean? Like they're one of those teams. I think we've talked a decent amount about Portland. Funny enough, this past season, and just kind of seeing what they got going on. Obviously, they lost Anthony Simons, but they got something cooking up in Portland, and then obviously San Antonio. Probably one of the teams where that's who this is a team where we're kind of expecting a huge leap from this upcoming season. So being in a group with all these great teams is going to be a great test for them and seeing what they can accomplish this season. So in my eyes, I think that's probably the best group out of this whole pool.
I'm gonna say same. That's the group of death right there. Easily, all of those teams are competitive. I just love the NBA Cup, bro. I think it's very competitive. Like I said a couple minutes ago, it just puts all these players in a different scenario. We got trying to score until the clock hits zero, just things that you don't normally see in the NBA. So I'm excited to get into it. And yeah, I think it happens earlier in the year, like
Mm-hmm.
within the first 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, the championship game is going to be December 16th. So yeah, it's like
Yeah, sure.
right, pretty much, yeah, 2 months into the season. So
Sure, I love it. I
super
love it,
exciting.
man.
Yeah, we'll definitely do our
Yeah,
predictions
we'll
when the
see.
closer it gets into the season, and I'm excited for it. I feel like that's something that Adam Silver has brought into the league. That's a new thing, and I enjoy it. I was about to say you enjoy it as well. I think it's just cool seeing high competitive basketball at such an early stage in the season. Being so early, and it's treated like a playoff scenarios. That's kind of what I felt like when pretty much we were playing all those games and leading up into the tournament. Those games in Las Vegas and even getting to the championship as well is like. It's cool, like the vibe of the game. It seemed like they're playing with a little bit of fire underneath them. So super excited to see what the NBA Cup has to offer this upcoming season.
Wise, brother. Ready to open the book, get into these off-season files, my man.
Yeah, yes sir. Let's get into it, man.
All right. Yeah, let's get into it. We doing it on the Denver Nuggets. The way we do it on this show is we start off with the three, franchise players that they are building around, and three-man we thinks they're building around. We do all 30 teams on the show as well. So hopefully the Denver Nuggets are your squad. Listen up, man, because we got a lot of information coming your way. We also go through their cap situation, and we add a little light three-man weave touch onto it. We see what they can do to strategically improve, and yeah, man, going forward, going to be doing a lot more in these off seasons. So I'm excited to chop it up about the Denver Nuggets with you, man. All right, my man. Yeah, we're gonna start it right off with the best player you could say in the world if you want. I think it's Shea, but undoubtedly it's Nikola Jokic, the first player that they are building around. He is a former Finals MVP, former, three. Obviously, he's won the MVP three times as well. I mean, what more can you really say about it? I think his age is the only concern. Um, but he's on like a 5 year, $276 million deal, which is very expensive. The thing I did want to note, it happened today actually. Mickey's postponing his like contract extension, which was gonna be something I brought up earlier in the show, but I was just gonna save it for the off-season files because it kind of goes into what we're gonna be talking about. But I think that's an interesting play by him. I think that says that he is looking to get max dollars. He's not really concerned about the Nuggets winning a championship. I think he sees that he's kind of at the tail end of his career, and um, if their owner said it, but like if they want to, they could trade Jokic and get the house back for him. But he's obviously the number one player, kind of going into next year. I don't think there's anybody else that's even close to where he can play in the upper echelon of basketball players. So I think he's postponing his contract talks until 2026, which is interesting. But I think it's going to keep a lot of strategic pressure on Denver's front office to make a move and make a good offer. So it's undoubtedly Nikola Jokic, the number one player that they're building around. But the second guy is none other than Jamal Murray. Um, Jamal Murray's like I would say he's in the twilight zone of his NBA career. He's already proven that he's an NBA champion. But at the end of the day, I think he still has a lot of work to be done. Him and Jokic, I know they can win more. I think in the regular season is just tough because he's not uh, necessarily a guy who cares about it. He's kind of like a Jimmy Butler player where he plays. He doesn't necessarily go out there and play with the most competitive spirit or 100%, but in the playoffs is where he really shines. But last season, he was a ghost, but I think he had an okay playoffs, which is kind of why I think the Nuggets didn't show up. He's also on a really big deal, I think, extending through 2029. I think it's like a 4 year, $208 million deal, which fit for his services. I don't know if that contract's going to be worth it. Um, we'll see in 4 years. I think he's getting paid this year like 56 is the number, like 55 or something like that. Um, a very expensive player. And I think honestly, Jamal Murray is an all-star caliber guard. It's not to say that he's not skilled, but we'll just have to see what he can give them during the regular season. And again, we'll see what he can do in the playoffs. I think him and Jokic have kind of been the backbone of this franchise for the last 3 to 4 years. Kind of their main core, and uh, those two guys really haven't wavered in terms of who they're building around. But I think being on that timeline is risky for a couple of reasons. One, the money, but two, their age. It's not like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are 26, right?
Right.
So we'll kind of have to see, as they approach, like I said, the twilight zone of their career, kind of it's a make or break situation for those two guys. But some of the best players that we have in the NBA, Jokic is obviously within the top two, and then Murray is a top 50 player in the NBA, no doubt. So um, over $400 million, 470 million worth of capital invested into those guys, almost $500 million. So just hopefully you get a return, and they have NBA champions, Nikola Jokic, Finals MVP. But this next dude, I think, is wiggled himself onto this list. Um, I didn't necessarily think if you would ask me 2 years, this person would be here, but yeah, he's got a star by his name in the outline. It's Christian Brown from Kansas, and won a national title at Kansas, and then also won an NBA title with the Nuggets. And for us at Three Man Weave, what it is just being on a team friendly deal. Still on his rookie contract, very very cheap. I think he's played himself into the role that he's built around Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, being that two-way superstar, super athletic guy. We saw he could do it in the playoffs. He was averaging 12, 6, and 4, I think, on 45% shooting. You saw CJ firsthand what he
I
could do versus the Thunder, bro.
I saw
So
it, bro.
like,
I understand it. That's why I was like,
and
I'm not mad at him being the third player that they're trying to build their team around, because it makes sense. He's a, like you said, great player, great contract, team friendly contract, and just kind of what he was able to show me this whole playoffs and just kind of the season, really, just what he's able to do. Being the some third, fourth option sometimes, depending on how well Aaron Gordon was doing or MPJ was doing. But it seems like he was the most consistent player that isn't one of their most expensive players on their books. So yeah, no, I agree 100%, bro.
yeah, and what makes him so special is the fact that he's kind of one of their core players as well. He's been there since day one. Um, they didn't. I'm sure they weren't on Christian Brown's timeline a couple years ago. They probably didn't think he'd turn into this type of player, but now that he has, the Nuggets are extremely happy and excited to negotiate his contract. And that's the other thing I was going to say. They need to jump on that. Just
Oh,
make sure they can,
dude.
they have bird rights. They have bird rights. They'll probably get it done. But I think moving forward, he's probably out Nikola Jokic, the most valuable player on the Nuggets. And that's kind of crazy. I think Jamal Murray's third. I brought him up second because obviously he's a part of that duo, but I think just Christian Braun's two-way prowess and his ability to perform in the playoffs. I mean, like I said, he had pretty good averages in the playoffs, so I think he's somebody who's willing to take the challenge, and uh, just a great piece to have around Nikola Jokic for the time being. But like I said a couple minutes ago, we also talk about the cap situation. Um, CJ, you can tell this to the audience where the Nuggets stand
Yeah.
with their cap right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So their total salary right now is 230 or 220.3 million. They're obviously in the second apron. Second apron, for everyone that doesn't know, is 207.8 million. They're currently 12 million over it. So I think that kind of just says it. We talked about it a lot. For everyone that doesn't know, I think their tax, once you're in the second apron, your tax 1.25 per dollar, I believe. So
Yep.
that adds up. They're 12 million over, so that's whatever that is. I'm not good at math, but it's a lot of money that they're having to pay extra to the NBA for having such big contracts on their roster. Tools that they lost, they cannot aggregate salaries and trades, sign and trade, or use mid-level exceptions. Kind of like what we were saying, once you get in that luxury tax, you're not able to do those type of things. I think we brought it up with the Mavericks, that or Cleveland, sorry, that's who we were talking about. They're not able to do those sign and trades because they're in the second apron. So, and that's huge, because that's how you get off of a huge contract, or if you're trying to get someone that's worth the same, and then just trade them away so you could free up those your books. You know, it like I said, it's a lot of the business side that a lot of people don't think about, but it's how you gotta run your team and how you're going to build
Great.
into the
Yes, sir.
future. So, you know, their biggest cap hits, obviously, Nikola Jokic, 55.2 mil. Jamal Murray, 43.2 million this upcoming season. Cam Johnson, you know, they just acquired from the Nets, 23.2 mil, and Aaron Gordon with 24 million. They're one of six teams currently over the second apron, forcing them into a very rigid offseason structure. You know, I think, you know, we talked about it as well, you know, because, you know, I have it up on my screen right now looking at their books and stuff. You know, I brought him up. Cam Johnson is one of the highest paid players, but they were able to get off that MPJ contract, which was huge. I think, you know, I have it up as well. It was like 38 million, you know, so it's the fact that they're able to trade that, you know, paying a similar type of player for 17 million less, or yeah, 17 million, or yeah, I'm bugging. A lot less, and getting the same back in return is what I'm trying to say. I think that was huge for them. You know, I think that was the reason why they did that trade. You know, yes, they gave up their 2031 first round pick, which, you know, when we talked about it, think that wasn't the best move, but in their situation that they're in right now, winning now with Nikola Jokic in this expensive roster, I think it was a move in the right direction. You know, do I think it's enough to win a championship? Not necessarily, but you know, if this is your timeline right now where you're at, and you have, you know, like you said, top two player in the league in Nikola Jokic, and with Jamal Murray being a, you know, top 50, it's going into the right direction, because you need to get as low into the luxury tax as you can with the roster that you've already have. So I think that's strategic cap benefit. Even though they're still over the second apron, they're trending toward financial sustainability by exchanging MPJ for dependability in Cam Johnson. You know, we kind of talked about that already. You know, was there anything else you wanted to say about their cap space and their?
But I mean, I'll bring it up a little bit. They fired Mike Malone
Mhm.
and fired Calvin Booth, and those guys are still on contracts. Like, they have a lot of dead money lying around their books. It's not uh, the best situation to be in. Adelman's come in and done a really good job with the roster, and they're very close to a championship. I think, you know, if they could have gotten there, them versus Indiana would have been a different matchup. But unfortunately, paying this much for a team that I think is volatile. I don't think, you know, if one injury to their one of their core guys, I don't think they have the power to withstand kind of the season, and really anybody in the NBA right now. But I think especially the Nuggets are super vulnerable because they haven't been able to build around Jokic as they want to, because they're so restricted with the money, like you just explained. And yeah, being over the second apron is not a place you want to be. And we'll kind of get into it, but there's some things that they can do to improve their team. You know, you already brought it up. You know, making that switch with Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. I think those guys are the same type of player, except Cam Johnson can play defense a little bit better.
Mhm.
And you know, we'll roll right into that. You know,
Yeah.
one of the improvements that I had written down was they need to lean into that new defensive identity. I think they'll be able to guard a little bit better using their roster. Peyton Watson, Strawther, Brown. You know, obviously they're I think Jokic and Jamal Murray are really their two defensive weak links. I think Cam Johnson a much better defender than Michael Porter Jr. is, and I think they can lean into that, bro. They'll be able to switch anybody really from 2 to 4. I think that's going to provide some juice to their defense, and they should be a lot better of a defensive team than they were last season, which is ultimately going to help them, especially whenever Jokic goes to the bench. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think that's the number one thing they got to do, bro, is lean into that identity. I think good defense creates offense. Um, most great offensive teams also have a decent defense just because they get turnovers, and that leads to fast breaks, right? Like when we're thinking about the game of basketball. But I think while Michael Porter Jr. is gone and you insert Cam Johnson into the lineup, I think they're able to switch, like I said, 2 to 4, and that's going to give them a lot of room figure out what they can do and lean into that identity and hopefully have it translate on the offensive side. They rely so heavily on Nikola Jokic to get things done in the half court, and while he continues to dazzle, it's easier if you have a good defense surrounding you.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, is they need to prioritize playing a little bit faster. I know it gets difficult in the Denver altitude, um, but that move with the MP for getting rid of MPJs is it has really extreme consequences if they can't win now. That 2032 first round pick has extreme implications moving forward in the future. You didn't touch on it too much, but the Nuggets have potential to be a bad team, and they really have to capitalize on their pace, on their shooting, on the guy. Aaron Gordon. We haven't talked about him too much, but his performance in the playoffs last season was unbelievable. They have
Unbelievable.
to lean into him a little bit more in his growing as a player. I think he's somebody who could shoot 35%, 40% from deep. We're going to need Brown and Watson and Strother to also shoot threes and play at a high pace. Really lean into their younger guys. It kind of goes alongside the defensive thing, but I think if they can play with a higher pace, give a more volume of threes. I think they shot a lot of threes last season. We haven't talked about Westbrook, but I think Westbrook did hurt their percentages. He did jack some bad shots there, but yeah, I just think if they increase their 3-point volume, if they play with more pace, they continue to play through their shooters, they're going to be really good. I think Julian Strother needs to get more run. We'll see how many 3-pointers they get up earlier in the year, but hopefully that can stay true throughout the season. We talked about him for a second, but they got to find a reliable backup for Nikola Jokic, bro. At this point, I don't know if it's coming. We don't know if Nikola Jokic needs saving, but we'll see what DeAndre Jordan and Jonas Valanciunas can do. I mean, those guys are okay. DeAndre Jordan less so, but I think Jonas Valanciunas is a bruiser. He's going to be able to board. I mean, I'm not expecting 20 and 10 from him, but I think he can give you a double double on a good night. 12 and 10, 14 and 10, and that's really all you need out of the backup center. So as long as he doesn't play for Panathinaikos, I think is the team.
Mm-hmm.
Panathinaikos or something, the
Mm-hmm.
Greece team,
Yeah.
before he leaves. As long as he's on the roster, I think he's a potential answer to that. But what I have in my notes is we need to see if somebody can help them. Somebody. They need a rim runner. They need an athletic big or a big who can stretch the floor. I don't think Jonas Valanciunas can shoot threes, but he's not an athletic big. He's not going to rim protect. He can't jump very high, and it's kind of similar to Jokic in that way. Kind of molders around the court and hopes for a rebound to fall into his hand. And I just worry that that's not sufficient enough to get it done. I know they don't have a lot of options because they are in the second apron, but I worry that that's not a sufficient backup to Nikola Jokic, and so we'll have to see how that plays out, bro. You know, the player that I had is Bismack Biyombo, super cheap, continues to bounce around a ton of different teams, and he can rim around a bit. He's more athletic. He can get a lob or two. I think he would play for $1 million. And that's kind of
That's
somebody that you need.
yeah. That's someone that the
Like it's
Nuggets need with their situation. Yeah.
yeah, they really don't have a lot of options, and I think it makes it easy for me and CJ with the list, but it's just difficult for them obviously because they don't have a big center pool to really from. Um, And then lastly, bro, is just they need to hold their youth accountable. I think Christian Braun is kind of like I said, the coming of the Nuggets old core, and having Peyton Watson and Julian Strother and the recent draft pick. I think they're going to be in a make or break season. It's kind of like, can this core really get it done when Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray leaves? And I think they're answering those questions as we speak, man. And I think it's been good to watch their growth. Peyton Watson and Strother had their opportunities in the playoffs and low key came through at different times. I think those guys are going to have to play more into their role as they really get used to it. But ultimately, Denver's in an interesting kind of hybrid situation, like you said. They're reworking their roster, retooling it kind of as we speak, and I think they're trying to build around those younger guys that they have, while also having Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray at the helm. Cam Johnson's a little bit older, but I think he can also mentor some of those dudes. kind of coming up as they move forward. But I think as long as they lean into what they're doing as like a um, younger team, you could say, more defensive oriented. Again, playing with more pace. Just being a younger squad, bro, having more energy. I think they're going to be able to win a lot of games. And the Nuggets are no slouch of a team. They've been doing it at a high level for the last couple seasons, really since they went to the NBA Finals. But I think their roster is starting to thin out, and I think they can really lean into some of the younger guys kind of moving forward. So those are the four things that I have on my notes they could do to strategically improve. As you guys, probably noticed, none of them are really operational because they are frozen. They have their first round pick frozen, and they also can't really make any moves with the mid level exception or signing trades. So they really can't do too much to add to their roster. But the bottom line is they're still a top five contender. They're in a new phase, though. Like TJ said, they're kind of in retooling mode, similar to the Celtics. It's not because of an injury or anything, but it's like they had this luxury contender, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and I think that flexibility is starting to shrink because those contracts are starting to hit the books, and they have to figure out how to work that. I think going in next year, still a top five, team in the NBA. They took the Thunder to 7 games, just like the Pacers did, and we kind of had that preview, which was pretty scary. I know the Nuggets probably scared the NBA champions, and they were one piece away, and somebody staying healthy and being consistent. Christian Braun had a really good game 7. I think they were one extra piece away from being able to beat the Thunder. So it's really a testament to how close they are as a team and an organization. They are by no means like in a bad place. I think they are financially, but their roster definitely is worth it and has been showing signs of winning an NBA championship potentially. So those were kind of my main thoughts on what they need to do with the bottom line. And going forward, we'll kind of see how Denver, their offseason kind of plays out. It'll be quiet most likely unless we see a contract extension, but no roster moves will really be made. But going into the next season, we'll see the type of guns they roll into to shoot with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it perfectly, man. They're definitely not in a bad situation as a roster wise, talent and stuff like that. Obviously, like you said, took us to 7 games, and that was a huge scare for us. I think I heard Lou Dort talking about that. That was a series that kind of, it had him a little nervous. It had us like really figure out what we're needing to do to win this series, and like you said, their lack of depth, kind of, in this series, it's kind of, what they have done in this offseason, retooling, getting players. We forgot to bring him up. They got Bruce Brown again. We don't know what he's gonna be, but we saw what he was for them 3 years ago. But maybe a different type of player. But they added him as well. So they have the young talent. Like you said, the Peyton Watsons, the Julian Strothers, Christian Brown, and like they have these players. Just need to have them jump up a little bit, see, we
Take
saw,
that next step. Yeah,
glimpses of what they were able to do specifically against us, like you said, with those two, Strother and Brown, like, they had 2 incredible games in those series, but, yeah, no, definitely not in a bad spot at all. They're still, one of the better teams in the league and in the Western Conference specifically, and, if they could figure out, what they're gonna have to do differently, and like you said, if they listen to the podcast and listen to our points, and they might be cooking up something in the Western Conference this year. But we'll see, man. We'll see.
100%. You want to add anything else, to the Nuggets off-season file, or you want to close that chapter?
Yeah, no, I think we did a good job, man. Did a great job explaining it to people. But we're gonna be talking about it a lot. Second aprons, first aprons, like all these behind the scenes stuff, business side of the league. I think we did a decent job. So I think we could close this chapter for now.
100%, my man. I think what is it? We got next? Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're gonna open up their off-season files a little different, cleaner books, younger players, but ultimately the Nuggets are in a spot where they have a chance to win a championship. I'm not going to sit here and say that. They were very close last year, and I think their rosters in a similar spot. Cam Johnson, I would argue, might even be better than Michael Porter Jr., especially on the defensive end. So we'll see what they got. I think this, like we're saying, we'll close this chapter, but I know they'll try to make a couple chess moves before the off season is finished. But yeah, man, you got anything else for the lovely people on 3 Man Week?
No, man, just and watch basketball, enjoy basketball. Shout out to Kenny, shout out to KOT4Q, bro. Excited
There
to
you go.
get into the rest of these off-season files,
Shout out
man.
Pete.
It's been super dope, being able to dive deep into each of these teams and figure out what their season is
What
going
they
to
can
look
do.
like or what they
Yeah,
can do to improve in this upcoming season. So, I appreciate this because it's helps me understand the whole contract situation a little bit better than what I did prior, in the beginning of this last season. So, I think it helps everyone, whoever listens, audience
yeah,
kind of
are you?
understand. Yeah. So, no, yeah, man. I think that's good. I think that's this is a great podcast as always, bro. Was there anything else you wanted to let the people know before we head out?
No, I think like I'm excited for Hayden. Luka Doncic. I think our group is interesting. I think we have a chance to win our group and hopefully, win an NBA Cup, but more importantly, just try to get to the NBA Finals, bro. I'm excited to see what the Lakers have for this offseason. I don't know if we'll make any more moves, but whenever we dive into their chapter, I'm excited. But yeah, I think, this has been a dope podcast. I want to tell the people, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Go follow us on Instagram. Go follow us on TikTok. Go do all those good things. We appreciate you guys, man. The reason why we do this is for all of our listeners out there, and we want to take a moment to thank you guys. So thank you from the bottom of our heart. But yeah, man, I'm good if you're good. Brother.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good, man.
That's gonna do it for your boys over here at 3 Man Weave. Like I just said, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you guys next time, man. Peace,
Peace.
man.
Three
Three
man,
man,
three
three
man.
man.